I recently took a trip down to Texas, and I had no expectation of finding inspiration for my picture book down there. But boy, was I wrong. Over the last few weeks, I've been working on the early concept of writing and illustrating a kid's book. But we had a family trip down to East Texas, and I was just planning on taking a break. Because the landscape of the fantasy world that I'm creating is very wet moss, think Ireland and the Pacific Northwest combined. So going down to East Texas, I just had no expectation to find inspiration there. But one evening, I was sitting there with not much to do, and I pulled out my tiny little sketchbook. And I started drawing these very dead-looking, boring-looking, colorless-looking trees. And they changed the trajectory of my picture book completely. In my last video, I talked about concept art and how important it was for me to be copying some of my favorite illustrators. And the reason I loved copying them is I realized what I could do if I could just start making the right decisions. And I started seeing how they break everything down into these simple shapes. Specifically, I was copying Dean Cornwell and Wouter Tulp. And after doing those master copies and my own character design, some magic really started to happen, and these drawings of trees became so easy because trees are just tubes. They're just logs that are stacked on top of each other. And I started noticing all these different patterns in trees that I've never noticed before because the drawings were coming easy. When the drawings come easy, the observation is heightened. And I started noticing all these really cool things about these very dead looking trees, but they're beautiful trees. They're really cool. Specifically, these pecan trees I was looking at. They're so tall, and now is not pecan season, so there wasn't anything to add to the tree. It was just the tree, and there was something really cool about just sitting down and studying these trees. I've been going back and forth in my mind about what medium I'm going to use for this kids book. I recently did a project that was a bunch of ink drawings and a handful of fully colored illustrations, and I didn't have enough time to sit down and do it with oils. And to be honest with you, I'm not comfortable enough to do an entire illustration with oil paints. I've never done that. Anyways, for that project, I did the ink drawings traditionally, and I did the paintings digitally. And that worked out well, but I kind of was disappointed in myself. Not because the illustrations didn't turn out, I think they turned out beautifully, but I've always looked up to illustrators like Howard Pyle, N.C. Wyeth. A more contemporary illustrator that I look up to would be Scott Gustafson and his fairy tales. And there's something about traditional art that I just love. There's a feeling to it that when I'm looking at it, I want to emulate. And I've started noticing this difference where I really crave the traditional more and more and more. And I've been leaning that way, and then AI came into the picture. AI, I'm not a doom and gloom person when it comes to AI. I think it's going to be a very handy tool. But I also think it is causing me and a lot of artists and a lot of people who just love good art to really crave the hand-drawn and the hand-painted. And all of this started to click. All of these thoughts started to click as I'm sitting and drawing these trees. There is a feeling I get when I am drawing a tree. After doing those studies of trees in East Texas, I have come home and I have started drawing trees like crazy and loving it. There is a feeling I get when I have my sketchbook and I am drawing a tree and thinking about what I saw. And it's a feeling that I have never had when I've been doing studies digitally.
I don't wanna go, but it's too late to stay. With a broken heart, I'm feeling about twice my age. Now I'm asking myself, is it still what I want? 'Cause every word's like like sandpaper on my tongue. And the rain falls and church bells sound. Not a soul I know could save me now. Well, these walls we built won't hold anymore. In the fire it falls like rain. I'm watching as the one good thing I did in my life is circling down the drain. So take it away.
I've done a lot of digital art and I appreciate the digital medium, but I cannot tell you the different feeling I have while I'm drawing traditionally. And I feel that when I look at traditional art. And so, as I was sitting and drawing these trees, it became so clear to me what the medium had to be for this book. It had to be traditional, and I think it has to be an oil painting. I think these illustrations need to be oil paintings. Now, I know that committing myself to traditional illustration means that my timeline is toast. Not that I had a timeline beforehand, but if I want this to be done traditionally, that's going to be a lot more work. I don't even know how to illustrate traditionally. I've never done a fully painted illustration. I don't even think I've painted a figure in oil paints. So I have a ton of learning to do, but I'm willing to do it. All because of these trees in East Texas.
So take it away.